Hi guys, in the previous tutorial, we created user authorization endpoint. And in this tutorial, we are going to continue with that. And if the user is unauthorized because of the token is expired or invalid, we are going to create the token API endpoint where user can request for the fresh pair of JSON web token. And then we would be able to invalid user if the refresh token is expired. So that's what we are going to do. Hey, if you are here for the first time and if you don't know me, I'm Prem from Dented Code. I create tutorial related to full stack web development. If you are interested, please subscribe the channel and turn on all the notifications. With that saying, let's jump into the computer. Okay guys, so let's continue from where we left last time. So I just want to quickly show you what we did last time. We created user authorization middleware, which now we can use in any private route. In our case, we used in our user authorization middleware in our get user, where this is the private endpoint. Now only user can get their profile if they have a valid JSON web token. So that's what we did. So in this tutorial though, what we are going to do is that we need to create the new endpoint. So I'm going to go to the app.js. Let's create the new entry point for the token. So I'm going to just copy this one and instead of ticket, I'm going to say token router, and actually I'm going to say tokens router, and let's create a file which we haven't created yet. We're going to create in a minute. So we're going to create in the router, and I'm going to say tokens.router. Let's create this file in our router folder, save that one, and go to our router, where is the router folder, and create a file called token.router.js. And here I'm going to just make easy for us. I'm just going to copy this. I didn't have to type few of that line of the code. So we need to require express, and we're gonna do so. And here we don't need anything. I'm just gonna, actually I don't even need the all router here. What we're gonna do is return from the, let's say, token router, just to do the test. And here I'm gonna say new accessJWT router name. So every time we request this new accessJWT, we want to send the fresh JWT. I'm gonna say, maybe let's say fresh JWT. Okay, let's and this one I'm gonna do get method here, and let's save this file, and let's go and call this one from our client. So from here beyond, we're going to create the I'm gonna say get refresh token, and I'm gonna simply do get token, get localhost, and our port b1/tokens, and when we go to that route, we should be able to get some message. So let's send the request and see what we're gonna get. Resources not found. Let's see what is the, go to the app here, and we wanted tokens. Make sure we spell correctly. Yeah, we have tokens, and save that. And when we go to, let me close that, go to our file here, make sure we have router.get. Actually, we don't need to define this one, because let's say by default, when we have a request to our token get, let's make it refresh token, or rather JWT. So that we don't have to have any further routes. Let's save that, and let's make a quick request and see. We get the, here is the new fresh token. So but what we need though is we need, if you remember when we sign in, we get a refresh token here. So make sure the client sends the refresh token along with the request here. So same way here in the authorization header, we are going to send the refresh token, and we were going to capture that refresh token in our router here. We don't need in the user router now, close that. We don't need app, close that. And token route here, let's get const, let's destructure our authorization token from request.header. So when we send authorization like so, it will be sending as a header, part of the header, to our requested to our endpoint, which is basically here. If you go to, again, sorry, app.js, just want to make sure you got that. So every time we request b1/tokens, we will be forwarded to this file, token.router, which we are working on. And then the first one, if you don't have any further URI called slug, then it will capture here. And then here we have authorization header, authorization property coming in the header, and we can simply, let's return this and see we received that. And let's make a request again. Okay, we did not get that. Let's see why. It's supposed to be headers, not header. Accept that and send it again. Now we have the message as a token. That means we received the token. So now what we're going to do is that we're gonna do a few things here. The first things I'm gonna do the first we're going to do, of course, and second we are going to check if the it is exists in database. Let me show you. Every time we sign in, the token, new refresh token, is created and stored in the database along with the user profile under the refresh JWT. There is the refresh token. Make sure this one is here. The one coming along with the request is same as this token, and we will get this date when it was created, and make sure we check if it is still valid. We are going to create the validation date is about 30 days for the refresh token. Make sure the token is created within 30 days so that we can create the refresh access token and return back to client. If the token is expired, then we will say force client to login, and we just simply say unauthorized response from here. Okay, let's do that. Third, check if it is not expired. If you have been following along previous tutorial, we did this part for access token. Now let's do for the refresh token. If you go to our JWT helper, we created verify access token. Let's copy this one and let's make it refresh token, this one. Refresh JWT. The process is exactly the same. The only difference is that now we need the secret for the refresh token, which was used up here when we were creating the refresh token. Otherwise, it will say signature is invalid. So let's go down here and we just swap this secret key from access to refresh. Did I get the refresh token? Oh, okay, we've been doing wrong here, guys. I can see that we're supposed to have a refresh token, not access token for refresh key as well. Let's go to our end file. Make sure we have refresh token there. Yeah, we're going to use this one instead of access token. So let's put it that here. This is for the we need the process.m. This is for the creating refresh token, and when we verify that, we need to use the same token here as well. And now we can simply export this function here and save the file. And now we can call this function in our way we're working on token route. Here, let's import that const, since it is not in default, so we need to put in the curly bracket. So to require, it will be in our helper slash JSON JWT helper. Now we can call this function down here and pass the return value as a let's say decoded. I'm gonna say, because if the token is valid, it will decode the payload which was integrated in the JWT when we were creating it. And make sure to pass the token, send the, I'm just gonna send here decoded and see what we're gonna receive. Okay, and again, don't forget to make the function async here, otherwise it will throw the error. Now let's make a call and see. Let's do that and say send it, and we say name JSON token signature invalid. Of course, because if you remember, we had to change the secret key because we were using the secret key for SS token. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna do login again. Now we have the fresh pair of the refresh key. I can copy that and replace with our token down here, and then send the request. There you go. We have our token validated and we have email integrated there. So I'm going to take this email to test here. That means if we do if decoded.email, if it is exists there, that means the core token is valid. If it does not exist, then we can simply say res.json, do the status first, o3.json message, again say probably done. That means the token is valid, right? So we have an email as well. So now what we can do, simply now we can do our part 2. So the part 1 is done. So since we have email, now we can search the email by, so we can search the client by email in our database. So let's get that. I'm gonna say const user profile equals to, I'm gonna do, oh wait, I think we have a function. If you go to our user.model, we have a function name called get user by ID, get user by email here. So we are going to import this one in our token router here. Const get user by ID require from user model slash user model. And now we can call this function here. We are going to await, and we're going to pass the email that we have here, right? That means, and if the user profile have the underscore ID, that means that user is exist, then we can do the another task, like whatever we want to do. We have the user, that means let's say response. Now we can simply check if the token is valid or not, because we will have the, let's say, const token, let's say token created. We'll have, let me show you before doing that. Let's see what we have here. So I'm gonna send here is a user profile, doesn't matter in the message. Save that. Let's do the request here. See, we're gonna have all this data coming from database. So if you see in our token, we have token edit date. Let's grab that. Go to token. So we will have a const token created, which is in our user profile. Dot. We have to go through this property, refresh token, and the edit date. So if we have a user, then we would definitely have this key, and inside that key we have the edit date. Let's I want to do console.log, print that token created date. If I save it and do the request from here, now we should be able to just ignore the error. Okay, we'll handle that later. See the date, which is exactly the same date as you can see in the database, 2011-10, which is 2011-10 here. So let's do that. Let's change this const to, I'm going to do late. And so what I'm going to do is that we're going to add 30 days on this the created days, so that we can get that expiry date, so that we can compare it if it is expire on the date when the client is requested. So to do that, instead of hard coding the date here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to write this date in the environment variable, so that when we launch this app in production, and if you want to change this date in some other date for some reason, we don't need to redeploy whole app just because of this. So the better way we do is go to in file. I'm going to quickly type. So I'm going to say JWS refresh secret expiry day is 30 days. Save the file, and make sure every time you save this file, we need to rerun the application. And now we can access this variable in our application, and we can use it. So let's make this token expiry date. So I'm going to probably say token expire. Let's write down exp, for example. And here, the way we can add the date is that simply we access the date function of the JavaScript. So token expiry date equals to token expiry date dot set date, and inside just do token expiry dot, we need to first get the date, and then we add the date, how many days you want. So that's gonna be in our process.end dot the variable we just created. So that many days we are going to add. So normally if you get any value from our environment variable, it comes as a string. So change that one to a number by simply put plus sign in front of the variable. Now it will be changed into a number type. And now we can add that date into this date. And now I can do const.expiry date. So let's save that. This one will print out, let's send that. This will print out in the timestamp. Let's change that one into human readable date. I simply, we don't need that. Simply do date function, just wrap that variable around it. Actually do the new date, so that it will return new object date with this date. So now let's send the request. And now we have there you go, 12 of 10. So the date in database is 11th of 10. After adding 30 days from environment variable here, now the date of this expiry token date is actually now is the 12th of 10. So now we got our expiry date here. Now we can do is get the today's date here. This is the way you get the today's date. Simply is just to const today equals to simply pass date as a new date object. So now we can simply compare these two. So what we're gonna do, so if the expiry date is smaller than today, so that means it's expired, because the smaller mean yesterday or before the date of today. So in that case, we expired, so that means we have to respond saying that forbidden here. I'm just gonna not need here. Let me take it out and say, hey, your token is expired, you are forbidden. Sorry, we cannot create the new refresh token for you. So you need to sign in again. So that's what I'm gonna do it. And okay, this one we done as well. So let me quickly go through here what's going on here. So we already did decode, so make sure the authorization header, the token they are sending, is valid and signature with our server. So if so, then the token will hold the email. We'll check that, and if the token is valid, now we will get the email from the token, and we will go to the database and search the user by email. And if the user exists in the database with that email address, we will get the user object with the underscore ID. And if that's the case, now we can get the token out of this database here where the token was created this date. And now we can add this expiry date, which we have defined in our environment variable as 30. So simply we add that 30 days on the day of the token was created, and that way we know when the token is actually expiring. And we also create the today's date by doing so, and we compare. If token expiry token is smaller than today, that means token is already expired. So simply say, hey, client, your request cannot be processed further because your token is expired. Now you have to log in and create the new refresh token. So if the token is not expired, then we can process further here and say simply call the refresh token. Let's go to JWT helper here. There is something called refresh token creator function here, create refresh token. So let's copy that and import in our token route. Here already have imported that file, so I'm just gonna put the function here and go down here, and we say const, let's say access token again, const JWT equals to await, and call the function, and it will simply, let's double check, it expects email and ID, so make sure we pass that. So in our function, so email is coming from the decoder.email, you can pass from there, and the ID is coming from user profile.id. So we have the access token. Now we can simply say rest.json, and inside we can pass this object, and I'm also gonna put the status just for the future purpose. I'm gonna say status success and comma send the access token, save that, and let's make the request now. Now there you go, we got the status success and we newly created this token. If you want to verify if this one is stored in our Redis database, you can do so by accessing the Redis CLI and simply to get the token, and oh, nil, that means it's not created properly, guys. Let's check why. Go to our router. Oh no, not the refresh token, guys, my bad. We have to create the access token, right? Not the refresh token. That's why it's not exist in our database. So instead of refresh token, I'm gonna call access token because this is what we needed, and make a call again and see. Looks like we didn't get the refresh token. Seems like there is some error. Let's check it out. It's saying the node Redis, the set command contains invalid arguments. It seems like, okay, I know what happened here. We had this error before as well because the user ID is object type, so it needs string, date, or buffer, not the object. So let's go here, and this one user ID, simply let's cast to string. Now this user ID, not the object anymore, it's string now. Let's send the request and see if it solves the problem or not. Yeah, I can see the new code token here. Okay, this error happening because again we are sending 2 times here. We need to return this and save that. So now we have a new pair of token. Let's quickly check if this error is fixed. We need to make sure if you want to terminate the execution, we need to return that so that we don't respond twice. Okay, we don't need to do here. This is the end of the line. Save that file and do new request again, and there is no error with the new code. Now this one must be in the Redis database if everything works fine. There you go. Now we have the user ID which is in our database. Now the new token has been created, stored in Redis database, and responds back to this client. Now when we create the client-side application, so we will use this new access token stored in our client browser, and then every time we do private router request, we will send along with the request here in the header, authorization header. So this is how we create the access token and refresh the access token. And also we can develop further. What we can do here, as soon as we create or before we create the new token, we can also delete the old token from database to avoid the crowd in our Redis database. Let's do delete old token from our Redis database. So the way we want to delete the thing is that every time we check if the key is valid or not, if the key is not valid, then we can call the function to delete the old key. So what we're gonna do, save this file, and we are not going to do here. But what we're gonna do is that go to the Redis helper file. This is what we have here so far, set and get. Let's do delete as well. Let's create a function called delete JWT. It receives the key and it's an error function, and then down there I'm gonna run in try catch block. We don't need to return anything from here, but we just want to console log the error so that we can debug if there is any error coming. So here what we can call is that simply we call client. Client means that client connecting to our Redis database. So here do client.del means delete and simply pass the key. If there is a key, it will delete the key from database. If there is no key, it will simply return null. And if there is any error, then it will throw the error and we can console and log here. So we don't need to respond anything back to the function wherever we are going to call from. So just copy that and let's go to the user.router. What is the user.router? Where we created authentication route, authorization route, where user can get user profile, which we did. This one we did last in the last tutorial. So what we're gonna do here, go to the authorization middleware, where we have first grab the JSON Web Token from authorization header. We are verifying here. If the token is verified, we will get email in the token from the decoded value, because verify function also decode the JWT and give us the payload. So if we have the email, that means we go ahead and do the other logic. Let's say if it does not have email, we're gonna do else, or we can simply do outside. If there is not no email, that means the key is not valid. That means either expire or invalid key. So simply now we can call that function and pass this authorization key here. So that way we can delete from the database so that less crowded. So let's import this function. Make sure we import somewhere here, which is in the Redis database, Redis.helper file. Simply I'm gonna paste here and save that file. So I'm gonna show you why it's useful in a second with the test. Now let's, for example, go in our client application here in our last tutorial, get user profile. So let's send the request. It's saying forbidden because token is probably expired, right? So let's quickly log in again. Now we have the first pair of token. Now let's go to the get user request, and here let's Control V and send the request. Now we have the user data coming from database. Let's say this token is expired. If you go to our create JWT, we have, for example, let's go to create. We have mark expiry day as a, in our access token, we have marked 15 minutes. Let's say we keep 1 minute only, for example. Yeah, let's save it And now when we do login, we will get new token. Now this token have only 1 minute of expiry date. Now if we try to check in our database, see we get the user ID. That means this key is exist in database. Now let's get the user profile with that JSON web token, right? Control V and send it. We get the user here because the token is still valid. Let's keep sending in a minute. I'll just wait for a second. Maybe I'll pause the video and then come back in a minute. After a minute, if I try to send the request, it's saying forbidden because the key was expired, because we only mark 1 minute, right? So that means every time the key is expired, let's go to our authorization middleware. So it does not go through this if statement, but rather goes outside this if statement, and the delete function is invoked. So where we should be deleting our key, because this is not a valid key, so we don't need that key to be in the database. So let's check that one now. So I still have in my command, simply press up arrow and then hit that key. Now you get the nil. That means it deleted that expired key from our Redis database. There you go. So yeah, we don't need this one from here. Let me delete that. Save the file. Maybe let me go quickly over one more time, in case if you are lost somewhere. So what we did here is that, let's say every time user requests the user profile or something, and let's say if the token is expired, we wanted to create the way where user can request for new refresh key. So for that reason, we created new route in our app.js file called v1/tokens, and we created new file called tokens.route, where we will be handling all creating new accessJWT web token. So here what we did is that as long as we get that request to this router, so we're going to receive the token, which is refresh token from client here. So here in our client, what we did, we call a v1/token with the refresh token. The refresh token, which we will be receiving in our tokens as a authorization header, and we will verify if the token is valid or not. If the token is valid, it will be decoded, and in the decoded version of the token, we will have our email. That's what we put as a payload in the token. So if we have an email, that means token is valid, and now we can go get the user by that email. If there is a user in the database for that email, we will have user.id in that object we're going to receive from this database, like this user ID. And if we have a user ID, then now we can also get the expiry date from the refresh token, this one. So this token was the date when the key was created. So this is the refresh token. And since we have put 30 days to expire the refresh token, we can simply add that expiry date on the day of the token created to make it expiry date. So, and also we create the today's date when the client is requested for the new access token, and we compare if the token expiry date is smaller than today's date, which is older, that means token is expired, or if the token that's sent by the user in their header is not similar as the one that we have in database, that means the user is not the user what they say they are. That means we simply say, okay, forbidden access. So that means user have to sign in order to create the new refresh token. So if both the case is true, okay, the token is still valid, the token is same as in the database and the date is still valid, then now we are going to create the new SS token and then response back to the client. And that's what we did. And on the top of that, what also we did was we went ahead and in our authorization middleware, and we removed the old token. So next time when customer request with the old expired token, here if the token is expired, that means we don't have email here, we will run this line of code, this line of code, and then we will delete that code, old JSON web token from our Redis database, so that our Redis database is less crowded. So this is how you manage your JSON web token and provide the fresh access token back to client. Okay, I just want to show you guys, I just updated our README file as well. Now, since we have the token API as well, so I just write it down. All the token API route follows the v1/token, and this is what we did. Get make a request, no problem, it's not private, and get SS fresh SS key. It's done. Okay, so simply I'm gonna put all this code in our repo so that you can check it. The code is available in the repo. Again, the link for the repository will be in the description below. Check it out. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you liked the tutorial. If you did, then give me a thumbs up. And in the next tutorial, we are going to create a API route for password reset. If a customer wants to reset their password, they should be able to reset the password. So we are going to create the API endpoint for that. And we will going to also verify user data in the server side. So we cannot trust any data coming from user side. So make sure we always verify customer data in the server side. So if you are interested on that tutorial, make sure you are subscribe the channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.